Let me ask you something right at the beginning of this video. What if the biggest vulnerabilities in Homeland Security cybersecurity are not hidden in code, not buried in encrypted systems, not sitting inside some sophisticated malware strain, but instead are found in leadership decisions, organizational culture, trust gaps, and human interpretation of risk? Welcome back, everyone. I'm so glad you are here because today we are diving into something that most cybersecurity conversations completely overlook. The power of qualitative inquiry in understanding how cybersecurity strategy is actually shaped in real world homeland security environments. We live in a time where dashboards, analytics, metrics, and technical performance indicators dominate the conversation. Yet, when breaches happen, when coordination fails, when information is not shared in time, the root cause is almost always human. Misaligned leadership vision, fragmented governance, breakdowns in collaboration, or competing organizational priorities. And that is exactly why qualitative research matters. Because qualitative inquiry does not just measure what happened, it explores why it happened, how leaders interpreted events, how trust was built or broken, how policies were understood in practice, and how real people inside institutions make decisions under pressure. In this video, we are gonna unpack how qualitative case study design, interviews, document analysis, and thematic interpretation allow us to examine cybersecurity not simply as a technical system, but as a living, breathing leadership ecosystem embedded inside Homeland Security governance. If you are a doctoral student, a cybersecurity professional, a policy leader, or someone simply curious about how research connects to real national security challenges, this conversation is going to give you a new lens, a qualitative lens, through which to understand strategy, resilience, and collaboration. So stay with me because what we are about to explore is not just research methodology. It is a way of seeing cybersecurity as a human-centered leadership challenge. This is where the conversation becomes even more important. When we talk about qualitative inquiry, we are talking about understanding lived experience, organizational meaning, leadership perception, and institutional behavior. And in Homeland Security cybersecurity strategy, those elements are not secondary, they are foundational. Quantitative data can tell us how many incidents occurred, how long response time lasted, or how much financial loss resulted from a breach. But only qualitative research can uncover how executives interpreted risk signals, how agencies negotiated information sharing agreements, how trust developed between public and private partners, and how policy frameworks were actually implemented in practice. Through in depth interviews, leaders articulate the unspoken realities of collaboration, the political sensitivities, the ethical dilemmas, the strategic trade offs, and those narratives reveal dimensions of governance that statistics alone cannot capture. Through document analysis, we begin to see how formal strategy aligns or fails to align with operational reality, exposing the gap between written policy and lived execution. And through thematic analysis, patterns begins to emerge. Systems thinking, adaptive leadership, crisis decision making, ethical oversight, and cross-sector coordination, all of which shape cybersecurity resilience more profoundly than technical configuration alone. Qualitative inquiry allows us to construct a leadership informed policy framework grounded in real world complexity rather than abstract theoretical assumption. And that is what transforms research from academic exercise into actionable strategy. So, as we continue this discussion, I want you to think differently about cybersecurity. Because protecting critical infrastructure is not simply about preventing intrusions. It is about understanding people, power, perception, and partnership. And qualitative inquiry is the tool that helps us see that clearly. And that perspective changes everything. Cybersecurity isn't just about coding or network defense. It's about bridging leadership, policy, and technology into a cohesive strategy. Leadership studies tell us that in complex systems, effectiveness depends on shared vision, adaptive capacity, and structures that enable coordinated action rather than isolated technical expertise. At the same time, cybersecurity literature warns us that fragmented governance and misaligned priorities are a huge problem, leaving sectors like energy, healthcare, and finance vulnerable to attacks. So, the research question becomes how can leaders in Homeland Security create frameworks that connect human decision making, organizational strategy, and technological capability to protect our critical infrastructure more effectively? This intersection is exactly what a qualitative approach can explore in rich, meaningful detail. The problem we are looking at is multifaceted. Despite rapid advancements in cybersecurity technology, critical infrastructure continues to face vulnerabilities because governance is fragmented, collaboration is inconsistent, and leadership approaches vary widely. Public private partnerships, which are supposed to be the backbone of national cyber defense, often struggle due to trust issues, misaligned objectives, and lack of standardized procedures. And that is where qualitative research shines because we are not just counting attacks or measuring system uptime. We are studying human behavior, leadership effectiveness, and the way organizations interact, negotiate, and respond to crisis. The research aims to answer how can leadership competencies and strategic policy frameworks improve coordination and resilience across these sectors. So, why choose qualitative research for a problem like this? Well, think about it. When we are trying to understand leadership, trust, collaboration, and organizational culture, it is impossible to reduce those dynamics to numbers alone. Qualitative research allows us to explore lived experiences, perspectives, and narratives that explain why certain policies succeed and others fail. It's about context, nuance, and meaning making. For the dissertation, this means interviewing leaders in Homeland Security agencies, private sector cybersecurity managers, and even executive decision makers to capture how they interpret risks, negotiate partnerships, and implement strategies in real time. This is information you simply cannot get from quantitative metrics like instant response times alone. Choosing a qualitative case study design because it's a perfect for exploring real-world phenomena where the context matters as much as the action. Public-private cybersecurity collaboration is a complex environment. It's dynamic, high stakes, and deeply embedded in both organizational and regulatory structures. A case study allows us to focus on specific agencies and private partners, observe their strategies, and understand how leadership competencies actually play out in practice. Essentially, it captures the richness of the real world environment, providing insights into behaviors, decisions, and organizational processes that are often invisible in purely quantitative studies. One of the main ways collecting data is through semi structured interviews. which are ideal because they give participants the freedom to share detailed narratives while still covering key research questions. These interviews will include Homeland Security officials, cybersecurity managers, and executives from private sector organizations who have direct experience in managing critical infrastructure risks. Can be asked about their strategies for collaboration, crisis management, decision making, and trust building. So that can be understood the human side of cybersecurity governance. Semi-structured interviews are powerful because they reveal tacit knowledge, the kind of practical wisdom and ethical decision making that formal policies often miss. Interviews are just one part of the story. Also, conducting document analysis, which means reviewing policies, memoranda of understanding, strategic plans, and government's frameworks that guide public-private collaboration. Organizational theory tells us that formal documents reflect leadership priorities and organizational culture. So, analyzing these artifacts alongside interview narratives allows to compare what leaders say with what policies actually prescribe. This triangulation enhances credibility, ensuring that the findings reflect both lived experience and formal structures, which is key for constructing a policy framework that is practical, actionable, and grounded in reality. Once interviews and documents are collected, will be used thematic analysis to identify requiring patterns and insights across data sources. Specifically looking for leadership competencies, collaboration mechanisms, crisis management strategies, ethical oversight, and cross-sector coordination practices. Thematic analysis allows these themes to emerge inductively, meaning the findings are grounded in the actual experiences and organizational realities rather than being imposed by pre-existing frameworks. This is important because effective cybersecurity governance is adaptive, relational, and context specific. And thematic coding helps us translate these qualitative narratives into actionable guidance. So, what kinds of leadership competencies matter in this context? Based on literature and preliminary research, skills like system thinking, ethical decision making, crisis leadership, and cross sector negotiation are crucial. Leaders must anticipate threats, understand complex interdependencies, and foster trust between organizations that historically may not fully cooperate. It's not just about who has the latest technology or software. It's about who can integrate human, organizational, and technical resources effectively. The research seeks to highlight exactly how these competencies are enacted in practice, providing a roadmap for leadership development in Homeland Security, cybersecurity. Collaboration between public agencies and private organizations is central to protecting critical infrastructure. Yet, as we know from past research, these partnerships are often challenged by competing priorities, information silos, and lack of standardized communication. The study examines how trust is built, how information sharing occurs, and how leaders negotiate these complex relationships. By focusing on real-world interactions, this research can identify mechanisms that make collaboration effective and also expose the barriers that undermine coordinated cybersecurity strategies. Ultimately, understanding this dynamic is essential for improving resilience against cyber threats that affect the nation. Cybersecurity leadership is not just technical, it's ethical and adaptive. Leaders must make rapid decisions with incomplete information, allocate scarce resources, and balance risk tolerance with public safety priorities. Interviews reveal how leaders interpret ethical obligations, manage crises, and maintain accountability under pressure. Document analysis complements these by showing whether formal guidance supports ethical and adaptive behavior. Together, these approaches highlight the human-centered side of cybersecurity, reminding us that even the best technology cannot compensate for poor leadership or misaligned organizational culture. The ultimate goal of this research is to build a leadership informed policy framework for public private collaboration. By combining insights from interviews, document analysis, and thematic coding, the framework will outline practical steps, decision making structures, and collaboration strategies that agencies and organizations can implement immediately. The framework is grounded in empirical evidence, reflecting the lived realities of those on the front line of cybersecurity. It is designed to be actionable, flexible, and applicable across multiple critical infrastructure sectors, bridging the gap between theory and practice. This research has real-world impact by identifying leadership competencies, collaboration mechanisms, and operational strategies. The findings can inform training programs, policy adjustments, and cross-sector partnerships. Homeland security agencies can use these insights to strengthen their incident response, improve interagency coordination, and better protect citizens from cyber disruption. Similarly, private sector organizations gain understanding of how to work effectively with government counterparts, reducing redundancy and improving threat mitigation. Essentially, it is about turning research into tangible improvements in national and organizational security. Research methods, case studies, interviews, document analysis, and thematic coding are uniquely suited for this work because they capture nuance, context, and human behavior. Unlike quantitative approaches that only provide numbers, qualitative inquiry allows us to understand why and how policies succeed or fail, how trust is developed, and how leadership decisions shape outcomes. For Homeland Security, where stakes are high and environments are complex, these methods reveal insights that are critical for designing effective strategies. They allow us to bridge the gap between lived experience and actionable policy, ensuring research is both rigorous and practical. Of course, there are challenges in qualitative research. Accessing participants in Homeland Security and private sector cybersecurity organizations requires careful planning and trust building. Interviews may be constrained by confidentiality, and policies may be sensitive. Triangulation through documents analysis mitigates these challenges, and thematic coding ensures systematic interpretation. Additionally, qualitative research requires careful attention to researcher bias, so reflexivity and transparency are essential throughout the process. Despite these challenges, the richness of insights gained makes the effort worthwhile. The implications of this research extend beyond academia. By clarifying which leadership competencies, organizational structures, and collaborative practices are effective, agencies can implement better training, improve strategic planning, and enhance national resilience. Policies can be adapted to reflect operational realities rather than theoretical ideals. Private sector partners can align strategies with public agencies, creating seamless information sharing and coordinated incident response. Ultimately, these findings strengthen the nation's ability to withstand cyber attacks and ensure the continuity of critical infrastructure operations. While this study provides a strong foundation, future research could expand to examine international collaboration, emerging cyber threats, and the integration of artificial intelligence into incident response. Comparative studies across sectors, countries, or levels of government could reveal additional patterns. Longitudinal studies would capture changes over time, showing how leadership practices and policies evolve with technology. Qualitative research continues to be essential for exploring these dynamics because it captures the human and organizational factors that numerical metrics alone cannot. In conclusion, the strategic management of cybersecurity within Homeland Security requires more than just technical expertise. It demands leadership, collaboration, adaptive policy frameworks, and a deep understanding of human and organizational behavior. Using a qualitative case study approach with interviews, document analysis, and thematic coding, this research illuminates the competencies and processes that drive effective collaboration across public and private sectors. By focusing on lived experiences and real-world practice, we can develop frameworks that are both theoretically robust and operationally practical. This is how research can make a tangible difference in protecting our nation's most critical systems. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one powerful idea. Cybersecurity in Homeland Security is not just about technology. It's about people, leadership, trust, and the decisions made in moments when failure is simply not an option. The future of protecting critical infrastructure will depend on leaders who can think strategically, collaborate across sectors, and adapt faster than threats evolve. And that is exactly why understanding the human side of security matters, just as much as understanding the technical side. If this video helped you see cybersecurity, leadership, or homeland security in a new way, I would truly appreciate your support. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who cares about security, leadership, or the future of critical infrastructure. Because conversations like this help build awareness and stronger communities. Thank you for spending this time learning with me. Keep pushing yourself to understand complex problems. Keep leading with integrity. And remember, strong security is built by people who choose every single day to protect what matters most. I will see you in the next video. Stay safe, stay sharp, and stay vigilant.